Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be talking about the follow-up to the Joker movie, the follow-up entitled Joker Folie A Deux. And of course, I am joined by my good buddy Caleb. How you doing, Caleb?
I am doing great and continually impressed by your French, Mark. How wonderful!
My French is awful. You should not be impressed by it.
Well, I think maybe that tells you something about the level of
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But we are glad that you joined us today. Remind you that we are brought to you by ProgressiveChristianity.org, a great place for all your progressive Christians resource needs. We always encourage you to go check them out and make sure that you're following us, the Moonshine Jesus Show, on Facebook, as well as all the wonderful places that you download your podcast. And finally, just need to make sure you know this is not a spoiler-free zone. We get our kicks out of spoiling this. So if you've not seen the movie and you're wanting to watch it spoiler-free, I suggest that you put a little pause on this and come back and check all of this out later. Caleb, I'm curious, you know, we always do this better with adult beverages. I'm wondering what beverage you decided to go with this time.
So I went with one that I have had before on the show, a Joker cocktail. There are a lot of them out there, especially with the release of the new movie. But I went to an old one, which was Jolly Rancher infused vodka that is kind of purple Jolly Ranchers. And since I was going with a candy theme, I've got a nice little smile, a red vine smile.
Twizzler smile. I like that.
Yes. And you know, this drink is kind of sour, and you're not really sure if you like it or not as you drink it. And I thought that's really appropriate for this movie, and so that's what I'm drinking. How about you, Mark? What are you drinking?
Well, I also went with one of the mini drinks entitled Joker. This was just great vodka, lime juice, and mineral water, but it gets this nice purple color, and I rimmed it with some green sugar. Just to give it that purple and green that were so readily identifiable with the Joker. And I'm excited about having it and talking about this movie, man.
Yeah, I've got to say, the color of that is just fantastic. That's
I
just
really
iconic.
I was amazed. I was amazed.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how it tastes, though. Oh, yeah, that's going to work out just fine. How about yours?
I'm not sure if I like it or not.
And with that, we'll take a quick drop and catch you on the other side. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're entering our geek out section where we will geek out for just a little while, and then we'll get into the theology and politics. But we do have to geek out. That's one of our favorite things to do. And today we're talking about Joker Folie A Deux, the second Joker movie. And this movie is loosely based on DC comic characters, and it is a sequel to, I think, the unexpected hit Joker in 2019.
At the time that it came out, it was the highest earning rated R movie.
Yeah, I mean, and Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for his portrayal, and I don't think anybody really expected that. And so, of course, there was a sequel. Although I'm not sure that anyone quite thought a sequel would be like this. And Joker, I think, was the movie that nobody asked for, but a lot of people seemed to want, even though they didn't know they wanted it. This one, I'm not sure anyone asked for, and I don't know if anyone wanted or not. So, Mark, my first question for you is, this has been very negatively reviewed by both audiences and critics. Tell me, how do you think that it compares to the Joker movie from 2019?
Oh, comparing the two. I think. See, here's the thing. I
And this
of what I
a
believe is probably less than 10% of the population who loved this movie.
Yeah.
I think it
Okay.
is an incredible movie.
I'm excited to hear this. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I genuinely think it's an absolute incredible movie. I think
Yeah.
it plays to a very small audience
Yeah.
because it plays to an audience who are sort of movie geeks and are really into
Yeah.
how movies are made and what genres are supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's really plays to people who know something about
Yeah.
psychology and the
Mhm.
way that is abused by society. It plays to people who like musicals but kind of prefer dark sides of anything. And
Mhm.
I kind of fit into all of those categories really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And so for me, the only thing I didn't really like, uh, well, there were two things I didn't like.
Yeah.
I didn't the pacing, but I had a problem
Mhm.
with the pacing on the first one. It was
Right.
very slow and methodical, but it kind of, I don't know, I guess it needed to be, but I wouldn't have mind seeing it a little faster. I also thought the way they sung every song with this sort of broken, whiny, forced, sad
Yeah.
singing was a little overdone.
Yeah.
But so in comparison, I actually like as a piece of filmmaking, I like this
Yeah.
film better. I think
Yeah.
the I think the framing of the film, the cinematography was even better. I
Yeah.
think the acting was even another step. He won't get nominated this time because he's already won for this role. I actually think he played the role even better in this movie, and I thought Lady Gaga was brilliant as Lee. So
Mm.
I could spin on and on about how much I was. This is one of those rare movies where I'm half the time sitting up in my seat, leaning forward in anticipation of what kind of really cool, wonderful thing that they're going to do that's so clever in the writing and the way that they're playing with genres. God, I loved it.
I'm kind of excited to hear this because I wasn't sure exactly how you would feel about this movie, but I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I would say that I definitely liked it a lot better than the first one, and that
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the movie. And I went in knowing how it had been received, and I immediately just thought these people are wrong. They don't
I
get it.
agree.
And I think that's the thing, is that I don't think a lot of people got the
Yeah,
first one. And I went out of the first one, and I've only seen the first one once because of the emotional impact it had on me. Like, I went out of that movie, I'm like, I feel depressed. Like, this
yeah,
was a very depressing movie about like the
absolutely.
state of our society, and about the mental health care and the way we let people devolve and stuff. I'm like, this is really a sad thing. But people did not get that. And there was
Yeah,
this whole segment of the population that was like rooting for Arthur to kind of devolve into the Joker and
yeah.
to be this hyper violent thing. I'm like, you have missed the point of this movie. And so even last night, as I went and saw this last night, as I was sitting there, there's this guy over to my right, and you know that scene, Mark, where where Arthur is being interviewed by the reporter
In the jail cell. Yeah,
in the jail cell, right?
and the
And
guy
so this
keeps going after him.
going after him, and I've got this guy over to my right who's like audibly saying, "Kill him, kill him, kill him."
Whoa!
And I'm like, this is the
This,
type of person who misunderstood the first movie and loved the first movie and
yeah,
does not get what this movie is about. And so
yeah.
I loved it too because I thought actually it did a great job of kind of holding up the middle finger to everyone who didn't understand the first
I
movie. And I
agree.
think that was
Yeah,
kind of the point of it, was to say you did not get this, and this is what it's about. So I'm with you. I love musicals.
me too.
I think every movie should be a musical. So
I
I'm
wouldn't go that
granted
far, but
granted, maybe I'm not the right person to ask about whether or not this should be a musical. But I want to go there for you, Mark. Do you think this movie should have been a musical? Because
oh yeah,
that is the most hotly debated
right.
subject matter of this movie.
Yes, I 100% think it needed to be. It didn't need to be, but it had to involve me. I mean, in the first movie, his dancing was a part of his psychosis. It kind of was a clue
Mhm.
that something was going wrong. Whenever he
Yeah.
started because Arthur as a person was sort of not that outgoing, not willing to be that free. And so the dancing and the music that went along with the dancing was already becoming part of his sort of psychosis. And then he gets introduced to this new character, Lee Quinzel, and he gets introduced through music. So it's not so strange that that the dancing part would blend in with the music and we'd see him devolve into it. So yeah, I really thought it was brilliant how the music brought them in and out of the kind of psychological issues that they were having, and the way that they would see the world and imagine or dream about what could or couldn't be within the world. I thought there was maybe there was one or two too many songs. If I was trying to be critical, I would say I'll go with the people who say, did it have to be so many? Yeah, maybe not, but I didn't mind any of them. And I thought one of the things that I don't mind about musicals, but I hear people critique musicals with, and I say, okay, that's fair, is that so often they just sing a song for the sake of singing the song.
Yeah.
And every song in this had purpose. It had meaning. It fit with the characters. It came out of who they were, what they were experiences, and the mental issues that they were going through. And so for me, it was even better than a lot of musicals because all the pieces fit for the right places and the right reasons and developed the characters in doing it. So I don't know, man. I really liked it.
I liked it as a musical too. I'm on the side where I wish there were more songs. I wish it had been a sung through musical. I think that like
a Hamilton kind of thing.
Yeah, if we were really going, or Les Mis, if we were really like going into the psychosis, I would have liked to have seen the whole thing. But I really liked it. I do have the same critique about. I mean, you've got freaking Lady Gaga there, and you're not really letting her sing. I think that was maybe a missed opportunity, and I get the broken singing with the broken psyche and all of that, but I think that that they didn't really utilize Lady Gaga to her full potential, but otherwise I loved it, and I sat there and really enjoyed it. You know what else, Mark? I liked. I'm curious about how you felt about this, but one of the things that really struck me was that it felt like in the original there also weren't necessarily consequences for actions, or we didn't get to see the consequences of the action. In this movie, there were consequences for the way that Arthur had behaved. And for me, that made the movie feel, I guess, less depressing, or I felt like it was a more well-rounded movie because of that. What did you think about the decisions they made to have Arthur face some consequences this go round?
Oh, I thought that was great. It felt like it was based more in reality, which is weird to say about a musical. But it did feel like it gave it more substance and a depth that the first one didn't have, because after we realized there were going to be consequences to actions, every action then can be measured by what is that, like what's the outcome going to be, how will this impact them, and then sometimes we saw it was pretty severe results of his actions. I mean, just saying on television in an interview that one of the guards is over fat and isn't he doesn't really like him anyway, results in him getting stripped down and beat down. I mean, it had some real consequences to actions, and I'm going to get to another one in our next segment of consequences of actions and outfall. But I liked that they did that, and think again that it made it a better movie. I know that most people didn't like this movie. I thought it was. I want to go back and see this in the theater before it gets out.
I'm really glad, because I thought maybe I was the lone person who enjoyed this movie, and so I wasn't sure.
Now, I will say I was with two other people. I was with my wife and her son, adult son. He fell asleep briefly, and she hated every minute of it. Just
really,
So we are in the minority in liking this. Okay, and even in seeing the reviews, right?
if we're two people, if we can find one more out of 10, then that I guess is pretty average. About 30% of people actually like that. I've got a lot of other questions, so let me prioritize here.
All right.
One thing I'm curious about. So at the end, we see an explosion in the courtroom, and we see several people injured, including Harvey Dent, the prosecuting attorney, which, I mean, it seemed like could turn him into Two-Face. Do you think...
He definitely had scarred on one side.
Right. It looked like it. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, do you think that this Todd Phillips universe, this Otherworlds kind of universe, do you think we'll see a Harvey Dent movie next? Or do you think Todd Phillips is kind of done with us?
I think that they were hoping for it. There was too many setups that happened in the movie for them to be one-offs, like not pay attention to it. I am afraid that because of how badly this is being received, that this is basically set in what they call Elseworlds universe. And I think they were hoping to sort of have an Elseworlds universe about the bad guys of Batman and never really need to have Batman in it. I think that's what they were hoping for. I got a bad feeling that just because this is not going to go over the way that Joker did, that we'll get to see it. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
The way that they critique society and even our care of folks with mental disorders and show it playing out and show the real impact of society on people and how individuals aren't nearly as responsible as we try to make them when they have issues, and that society has a lot of responsibility and we need to critique society and look at the system. I would love to have seen a whole bunch of that. I'm not sure if we're going to get to see it. What do you think?
Yeah, I would love to see it as well. I think that this movie has to make somewhere around $400 million to break even. And so whether or not we'll see that, maybe we'll determine. I mean, it could be successful, even moderately successful, even if it is poorly reviewed. I mean, certainly we have seen that with other superhero adjacent movies. Right. So I would love to see it continue, but I agree. I'm not sure that we actually will. So I've got other questions, but I'll save them for later in the segment, because I just think that this is such an interesting movie, and so
it really is.
But if we continue talking about this, we won't get to our theology and politics. So why don't we take a quick break? Let's come back and let's move into our Theopolitico segment.
Hello, and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for our Theopolitico segment. So there are, of course, there could be lots of questions about society, the justice system, and its relationship to mental health. We've talked quite a bit about mental health on various other shows. I want to take a few different approaches here in talking about this. So my favorite inmate at Arkham was Ricky, kind of Arthur's #1 fan, who kind of fanboyed about him. And in one scene, a little bit later in the movie, he is voicing his support through Arthur, singing a song as the guards are punishing Arthur. And his support leads to one of the officers strangling him to death. It's a difficult scene, but unfortunately, it's not a fully unheard of in reality. Is there a need for prison reform in the U.S., and what kind of things do we need to be focusing on if there is?
There is absolutely a need for prison reform in all sorts of respects. But I think particularly the fact that we've got prisons run by for-profit companies is just atrocious. And they're not often interested in the health or rehabilitation of inmates. They're interested in more inmates because that leads to more profit. And so we have a very broken system. We're not investing fully in reform, and I think that that's so dangerous. Speaking of musicals, I was listening to a story on NPR not too long ago about at Sing Sing implementing a musical theater program, and perhaps I've mentioned this to you, but they found that once people are involved in this musical theater program, even the worst offenders, that they are rehabilitated more fully and the recidivism rate lowers substantially. And something like 97% of these folks stay out of prison after they've gone through this program. And it's amazing if you give people something to live for, if you give people meaning, if you give people relationships and purpose, yes, that it makes a huge difference. And our prison system, it seems, is really focused on not rehabilitation, but retributive justice, just punishing people. And I think that, and making money. And that's not even to mention our whole criminal justice system that targets people of color and gets them into the prison systems to begin with. So that's a few of the many problems that we have with our prison system. How about you, Mark? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
You probably think we're doing a really good job.
Yeah, fantastic. Actually, I wish that the rest of the world could look at us and figure out how perfect we are with all of this and just model after us. No, I mean it's kind of like you said, capitalism ruins everything, man. It just does. And I know that's not something you're supposed to say out loud in the U.S., but ultimately, money becomes the focus, and we stop caring about society, and worship. We stop caring about the people who make up society. Yeah. And that's exactly what we have in our, at least in the for-profit parts of the prison system. So you've got that as one issue that just even the way it's structured disallows us from focusing on what really needs to be focused on, because we're only interested in the high and mighty dollar. But even in the ones that aren't for profit, our kind of focus in the U.S. of retributive punishment, an eye for an eye, puts us in a place where we just have recidivism, and rather than focusing on rehabilitation, reforming behavior, coaching through life skills, and even psychologically, I think it's important to kind of bring that up a little bit, thinking through who am I, what got me here, why do I repeat these behaviors, what can be done to fix it. We spend far too little time and far too little money trying to make sure that we help folks move past that. We're much more interested in feeling like a very harsh justice is served, rather than realizing what we really need is justice for society. And justice for society means that we have more folks who are able to function in society in a positive, contributing way. And so I think there's just far too much work that's got to be done in those areas. And we're a long way away from even the motivation to do it, unfortunately. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people think that that the prison system is absolutely necessary, and a lot of people really believe in retribution. Get right down to it, they think that people who have committed some kind of an offense deserve to be punished, and they're interested in that punishment and not in the rehabilitation. That is, of course, not a Christian view. Right. That is a human view, but not a Christian view. I mean, I get it. There are parts of me that want that to happen too, but that's one of the reasons that I follow Jesus, is because left to my own devices, I wouldn't want to do any of those things. But I recognize that we are constantly called to try to make the world a better place, and the way we do that is by forgiving as we can, by working towards justice, working towards people being able to live full and productive lives, even when we've done things that aren't perfect, because none of us are perfect. And I think certainly when we talk about these systemic issues as well, where people are punished in large part, are targeted because of the color of their skin, or funneled into the prison system. There is just so much wrong with all of this that we really need to find the motivation to fix this, because, as Michelle Alexander says, we've created the new Jim Crow in our prison system. And so it's very dangerous and something we've got to address.
Yeah. Well, there's even more we could delve into there about society's responsibility and even creating people who end up in prisons. But I want to move on to my next question, moving sort of into the trials period of the movie. A couple of questions here I want to get to. One, when the Joker cross-examines his once friend Gary Puddles, Gary is distraught at how Arthur the Joker is treating him, because he even says that he believed at one point that Arthur was like the one person who treated him well, but that he started treating him in a way that makes him feel small and powerless. And when he does that, it's almost like the one moment in the movie that seems to get to Arthur. There's this moment of almost empathy, where he briefly seems to recognize something we were talking about earlier, seems to recognize how his actions have consequences, how his actions impact other people. So my question, I guess, is, as folks who value the teachings of Jesus, folks who are trying to follow the teachings of Jesus, what should a scene like that remind us about how we are called to engage in the world?
Yeah, that scene was really interesting for me at the movie, because, as I mentioned, there were some folks in the theater who did not get the movie. It clearly didn't get the movie we were watching, or the last one. And there were people making fun of this guy's height and who he was. Like, in the theater, they were joining in with Joker. And
completely missing what is even going on in the moment of the scene.
Exactly. And so I felt very much like I was kind of living in that courtroom as I was watching that. And I thought, this is one of the problems in our society, that we dehumanize others, that we see people not as fully human, but as something else, something other. And I think the constant call is for us to be building relationships across lines, because when you build relationships, people are no longer other. They are, there's someone someone you love, someone you care about. And I think that is true across all kinds of demographics. I think it's true when we're talking about LGBTQ plus folks, that it's harder to vote for people who want to strip rights away from people that you know and love, when you've taken the time to acknowledge who people really are. I think it's true when we're talking about people from other places, people who have come into the country as refugees or as immigrants, that if we build relationships with those folks, then all of a sudden it's harder to vote for people who want to pass policies that basically condemn these folks to death. I think the teachings of Jesus is always to see every person as a child of God, as someone of infinite worth, or even in humanistic terms, just a fellow human being. And damn it, isn't it just being a good human to care about other people? I mean, why do we feel this need to dehumanize others? It's tragic, I think. So I think the call from Christ is to build relationships and to let that.
I completely agree. And I'm just so I can get to the next question, I'm just going to say I very much agree that we are called to stop othering other people. That start recognizing there is something of God in all of us, and it connects us and should pull us together. So shortly after that happens, he seems to have a little bit of a break in kind of being self-reflective, and he kind of says, that there is no Joker. And then Arthur says, I just want to blow it all up and start all over again.
Yeah.
And very shortly after that, someone from the mob outside blows up the wall with a car bomb.
Yeah.
After he says, I just want to. So talk a little bit about the importance of the language that leaders use, maybe particularly political leaders, and what their accountability should be when their words inspire violence.
Why, Mark? Has that happened in recent memory?
I'm trying to. It seems it's a tickle in the back of my head, but I'm just not. I don't.
Someone maybe who's running for the highest office in the land at the moment.
Exactly.
You know, it is so crazy to me that Trump denies any kind of liability for January 6th. That even in recent debates, you know, where he says, well, all I was doing was giving a speech. That's it. I was just giving a speech. You know, I can't be held responsible for these folks' action. And when you are a leader of any kind, measuring your words carefully is important. But certainly when you're in the highest elected office in the land, that you have a responsibility to ensure the safety of all the people you govern. Absolutely. And or even if you are going out of the leadership position where you're going to govern them, you know, you would hope that you have a responsibility, feel a responsibility there. And so certainly I think Trump was responsible for the mob violence there. I think though it's also true when we're talking about religious authorities that we got to be careful because the church has caused so much damage.
And frequently it starts with our words.
It starts with our words, absolutely, and not being careful about who's in our congregations, about the kind of theology that we're proposing. That sometimes maybe we don't think that, like, if we're talking about, say, like if you are have committed some sin and you're going to an eternal hell, well, that traumatizes people because they've people have put their trust in religious leaders, and if religious leaders aren't careful with that trust, then that causes all sorts of religious trauma, and that's why we've got all kinds of people with PTSD from going to church. Absolutely. And it's problematic. That my 2 cents on it. What do you think, Mark?
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's particularly true when you're at a position where folks are going to be paying and taking to heart what you're saying. It's particularly true in those positions. But the truth is, just as a person, your words matter. There's a reason why we talk about you can't yell fire in a crowded theater when there's not a fire. Your words have consequences. And when your words cause things to happen that hurt people, then you need to be held accountable. Now, how that is, it needs to, going back to our previous question, needs not to be retributive. We need to point out that was incorrect behavior that you can't do. We need to get a system that works better for helping, like, kind of rehab a person and help everyone understand that we have a better society overall when we do that. And that would be something, again, that we could delve into really, really deeply, except for the fact that we've come to the end of the time for this segment, and we don't want to miss our favorite segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment. So I'm going to have us take a quick drop, and we'll be back right after it.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're entering our Make Me Look Stupid segment where we get to ask each other a question to try and make each other look stupid, or maybe just something we're wondering about, or sometimes a prediction. And Mark, this time I just want to ask you a question out of a point of curiosity, just something that I wanted to talk a little more about. So I love Batman. You know, I love all things Batman. Here's my question, though. Do we really need a lot of Batman adjacent media? I mean, we've got Gotham in recent years, Penguin right now on Max. We had Gotham Knights, which was not good. The Titans, all kinds of Batman adjacent stuff. What do you think about media that doesn't directly involve Batman? Do you think it's worth having around? Do we need more of it? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a good platform where you can tell great stories. And it's so if you're doing that, sure. But if you're doing Gotham Knights, maybe you need to rethink.
Wait, I was hoping they were going to make another season of that.
Well, I hate to break this to you. I'm pretty sure.
That was what seriously, Mark, one of the worst things I have ever watched in my life was Gotham Knights. And I'm pretty forgiving. I think.
Right. I agree. You are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I liked it very slightly better than you did, but not by much. So, no, I don't mind if you're using a platform to tell a story, if you're not repeating it the same story over and over again, if you're doing something new and interesting, I'm all for it, man. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
What about you? I mean, do you think it's an issue doing it too much? Are we killing the whole idea just because we've overdone it?
I think in some ways, yes. Maybe at some shows I've watched, and I thought, why am I watching a Batman show that doesn't have Batman in it? That has been my impression a lot of times, and so I think that's pretty firmly where I resided until Penguin, which I know we'll probably talk about later. But
Yeah.
Penguin has been really, really good, and if we can get more of that kind of quality, then yeah, I'm in for that. And that there are possibilities for crossovers and stuff, and where we've seen Batman kind of in there. I'm all for that. So okay, thanks. I just wanted your perspective on that, Mark.
Okay, well, my question is this: at the end of the Joker movie,
yes,
Joker, spoiler alert, gets killed.
We made it through almost 40 minutes of this show without mentioning that, and I think that's a pretty big accomplishment.
That's not bad. Not bad.
That's not bad.
But he was walking down a hallway when this happens to go see a visitor.
Yeah.
Who was the visitor?
I don't think there was a visitor. So my thought was, I thought the guards were still mad at Arthur with all of it, and that they set it up. I think it was the guards. What do you think?
I completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah.
He was left alone longer than he had ever been left alone by a guard.
Mm-hmm.
I think they intentionally. I think there was a lot of good filmmaking that was in this. Which again, why are people so? But for instance, the second time he meets Lee Quinzel, she goes out into a hallway, and the guard that he calls fat and says he doesn't like is in the music room, and he loves music. As a matter of fact, a lot of the songs we hear, we first hear him whistling it or singing it a little bit, and they even take the time to show him allowing Arthur to go outside of the room and stay with her, but they make a point of showing him shooting his eyes over there at him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even when he's allowing him to step away, he's monitoring him. And then all of a sudden at the very end, we have this long hallway where he's left alone by himself for an extraordinary. I mean, it felt like they were trying to let us know what was going on a little bit there. So yeah, I agree. I think it was fully a setup.
Yeah, especially since the guy had time to like do a back and forth, talk about a joke, and all that. It's not like he just came up and shivved him. That there was some back and forth, and clearly the guard would have had to have gone on and not cared. So yeah, I love that. So we got a little bit of time, Mark. So I'm going to ask you one more question.
Does that mean I get another question?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
Two more questions. Okay.
I've got a curiosity question more than
mine's a curiosity question too, because I really liked this piece of the film, and I wanted to see what you thought of it. So there was an animated intro to the film that kind of summarized the end of the first movie from Arthur's perspective. What did you think about that? That was the second sequel we've gotten this month where that used an animated sequence as a part of the movie. How'd you like it?
I actually loved it. I was at first I was like, oh, this will be fun. They're just going to do a little goofy animated thing to kind of pre-entertain us. But it did a couple things. It was a setup to that we're going to see some different genres, older genres. We had genres from the musicals from the 50s. We had kind of jail courtroom genres from the 70s field that happened. We had a sort of a Chicago genre that like the musical that was happening. So they kind of let us know that they're playing with genres. Then they retell the story of the end, and in the background there's all kinds of little hints. It turns out of music that's going to show up in it. And I kind of liked the way it set us into this sort of fantasy world a little bit and allowed us to kind of free ourselves up. At first, I wasn't sure if it was going to have any real impact on the movie. And I'm so glad that it did. And it wasn't just its own little moment of, here's a fun little thing you get to do before you watch the movie. What did you think of it?
So we're finishing up the previews, and I thought, okay, this is the second to the last preview, or maybe the last preview. I better go out and go to the bathroom before the movie starts. And so I came back in, and it was this animated sequence, and I'm like, what happened? Like, is this the movie or what is this? And then I realized pretty quickly, I'm like, oh, this is the retelling of and I loved it. I was in. So like from that scene, I'm like, I think people have misjudged this movie. I think I'm here for this. So I liked it. Okay, what's your other one?
My question is real simple. So going back to the guy who kills Joker in the hallway.
Yeah.
After he kills Joker, he takes his knife and he cuts his mouth. Was that supposed to be a young Heath Ledger?
Oh.
Because Heath has those cuts that are never explained in his Joker movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm stumped.
Yeah.
I mean, why would he cross over? Because Heath Ledger's is in the actual Batman world. It's not in the Elseworld.
Right. And I think Christopher Nolan would hate it if they did that. He was so adamant that his was standalone and was. I mean, granted, this is pretty grounded, but still, I think he would hate that. I thought of that more as just the copycat theme that was going on throughout the movie, as we saw people dressed up as him, that this was a mob. Although that would be kind of a cool tie-in.
It's at least interesting. When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute. And I know that's going to probably make some people really mad because, hey, you can't do that. You can't go between the two. And now you've ruined the... But anyway, I found it very interesting.
The timelines would be pretty close, right, to working out.
If he is the young version, because it would give us about 15 years difference between the two or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, theoretically, it could be possible. Mark, could be possible.
I guess so.
Okay, well, this has been a lot of fun, and we need to be thinking about next week, though. And you had a suggestion, Mark. And I really like this. You suggested Wild Robot. It's an animated kids film. And I went to go see this, and I saw it this weekend with my daughter and a couple of her friends. And it was a really cool movie. It was very profound and also entertaining and fun. And you often don't find those in kids' movies. And it was sci-fi. And so I loved it. So I think that's a great suggestion, Mark.
I like it. I happened to notice that Rotten Tomatoes had a 98, critic score 98. I'm like, after reviewing a movie that's getting panned by so many people, it'd be great to do one that everyone kind of across the board agrees is a really good movie.
Wild Robot, they got right. Joker, they got wrong. And it just happens sometimes. Sometimes just nobody knows what they're talking about except us.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm sure that's what this.
It's true.
Hey, thank you all for joining us and letting us geek out on this show and allowing us to talk about theology and politics. We love doing this and appreciate your time. So we'll plan to see you next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus.